Hey, welcome to day 5 of the X Challenge. Today we're looking for 16 people. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 people to join the X Challenge, which is tuning into this live stream 10 a.m. Tomorrow, Sunday morning, day 6 of the X Challenge. We'll have something special for you. Then have a conversation with one person during the day. That's the most important part of this X Challenge. Having that conversation, then invite that person to join the X Challenge by tuning into the live stream and having that conversation with somebody else the next day. And then in order for all of this to know how we're doing, and we'll talk about this in a minute, we want to report that conversation at connectuschurch.org/xchallenge/report. The links are all in the bio. We're doing a Bible reading plan from the Bible app. Make sure to check that out. Description. The links in the description, and make sure you stay accountable to that reporting. Thanks for tuning in. The X Challenge is a 14-day multiplication challenge, multiplication movement of people connecting with others and sharing the hope of Jesus with them. And so it's all about you and the conversations that you will have with the people in your life. And this is just a time of conversation, a time of inspiration for you to have those conversations. So let me jump on my Facebook feed real quick and hit that watch party link. That way more people know what's going on. Thanks for tuning in. And let's see, X Challenge, the X Challenge, day 5. All right, there we go. Cool. Mute that. All right, so this challenge is all about spreading the message and the hope that we can find in Jesus. And it's related to the way that the virus, the COVID-19 virus, is spreading and causing this panic and fear and all of the changes that are happening in the world to happen. And so just our little focus here as we get started this morning is there's a difference, though, in the way that the virus spreads and a way that the message of Jesus, the hope of what Jesus has done for us, how that spreads. And what's the difference? Well, the difference is the second one, the discipleship, the sharing of the gospel and the good news, that spreads with intentionality, it spreads with passion, it spreads with leadership. And the virus, of course, is just sort of something that happens through the air, and the scientists might be able to tell you better about how exactly that all works. But the message of Jesus needs to be shared in an intentional way, with passion and with leadership as we're meeting people right where they are. And so saying that, this challenge is now 2 generations of multiplication beyond me. And if you've checked out that spreadsheet of how we're doing, you can see that we're starting to lag behind. And so I've reached out to my people that I've talked with, and I've encouraged them to keep it going. And it's the only way that we can do this is if we consistently reach out and connect with people. And that's, again, what this is all about. It's a little bit of a case study in multiplication leadership. Because as you might know, tomorrow is Sunday, and that's usually the day lots of people go to church, or you go to church. But of course, this Sunday might be different. Most likely will be different, and you won't be going anywhere to church. And so if the churches can't gather in person for the foreseeable future, I really believe that as people that we have this message and we have this hope and we have this ability to have conversations with people, and it's going to be a lot about how well we do having these conversations. It's never been about church has never been about showing up somewhere for an hour on a Sunday morning. It's always been more than that, but now it has to be the focus has to be different because you can't physically do that anymore. And so what I see is this network of multiplication of people having these spiritual conversations in people's lives, and then still being connected in a network, in a movement in some way. And so that's where this reporting feature of just checking in and saying, hey, I had my conversation today is so important because how else can we stick together? How else can we be in this together? So again, we can't gather, but the responsibility is on us, is on you to have these conversations, to keep the message going, to keep the movement going, to care for people, to love people, and to share the hope of Jesus with people during these times where people need hope. And so in your conversation today with somebody, my suggestion or my question that I think that you might be able to ask with that person is, what does faith mean to you? And then maybe a follow-up question is, who is an example of faith that you can follow? And then remember to report that conversation that you have. So I'm going to hop over to our Bible reading plan. Hope in the Dark, day 5. You can see the link in the description for that. And it's all about faith. And so Craig Groeschel, the guy who writes this, starts with a Martin Luther King Jr. quote: "Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step." Taking a step, getting going, getting moving, that's a great place for faith to start. When it comes to faith, there's going to be waiting involved. We talked about that yesterday. I love the way C.S. Lewis puts it. "I am sure that God keeps no one waiting unless he sees that it is good for him to wait." We can trust God to do what's best for us at the right time. We talked all about waiting, but it's not, waiting is just something that happens. How we approach that waiting period, our attitude in the waiting period, the way that we're thinking in the waiting period, what we believe will happen when that waiting period is over is all about faith. And that's what we're talking about this morning. If you want to strengthen your faith, I have no better place to look than the book of Hebrews. There in chapter 11, we find the Hall of Faith, the Faith Hall of Fame, a list of so many people who struggled, waited, lived by faith, and saw God's promises fulfilled. There we find people going through unbelievable things, seemingly impossible trials, and ultimately experiencing a new level of intimacy with God, even as they witness more of his power. So here's some of the list. By faith, Noah obeyed God and built an ark, saving his family. By faith, Sarah and Abraham received the son God promised them, even though they were past the age of childbearing. By faith, Joseph overcame betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment to save the nation of Israel. By faith, God's people left Egypt and walked through the Red Sea as it parted on either side of them. By faith, the Israelites marched around the walls of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. These weren't perfect people. Far from it. In fact, they all had their struggles and doubts, their mistakes and infidelities, their flaws and their weaknesses, but they persevered in their faith and waited on God again and again. By faith, you will get through this. Think about it. If you had everything figured out, you wouldn't need faith. You could live simply by your understanding, by your logic, but not by faith. But when you don't understand something, that gives you the unique opportunity to deepen your faith. Oswald Chambers said, "Faith is deliberate confidence in the character of God whose ways you may not understand at the time." So will you pray today, God, will you grow my faith way beyond my own need to figure everything out? We don't have it all figured out in life, and we don't have this particular situation figured out, of course. But will we trust God? Will we have faith to grow beyond our ability to figure this stuff out? So Habakkuk was where we were going to be. We've been in this verse the last day or two. Habakkuk 2, verse 3. "This vision is for a future time. It describes the end, and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place." There's the faith. It will not be delayed. It seems slow in coming, so wait, But as you wait, be sure that it will take place. It will not be delayed. Then if we jump over to Hebrews chapter 11, that great hall of faith, says, faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. There's a good definition of faith. The reality of things hoped for. We hope for it, but we really believe that it's real. And it is the evidence of things we can't see. We can't see yet what is yet to come, but we see today evidence of what will be. And through faith, the people in old earned a good reputation. He starts, by faith, we understand that the entire universe was formed at God's command, and what we now see did not come from anything that can be seen. You go back to the beginning of the creation of the world, and no one was there when that happened, and yet we have different theories and understandings of how that all took place. But if we weren't there and we couldn't see it, then what we understand of it is somewhat, it is a faith step, a belief step, and the evidence that we do have. And then the list goes on, and the writer of the book of Hebrews talks about the faith of Abel. And I encourage you to read through this today. The faith of Enoch, the faith of Noah, the faith of Abraham and Sarah, the faith that Abraham, when he offered his son Isaac as a sacrifice, the faith of Isaac's sons, Jacob and Esau, the faith of Jacob, Joseph, the faith of Moses. And keep scrolling down through here. The faith that the people marched around Jericho for 77 days, and the faith of Rahab the prostitute. And then it says, what more do I need to say? This is verse 32 of Hebrews 11. It would take too long to recount the stories of the faith of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and all the prophets. By faith, these people overthrew kingdoms, ruled with justice, received what God had promised them. They shut the mouths of lions, quenched the flames of fire, and escaped the death by the edge of the sword. Their weakness was turned to strength. They became strong in battle and put whole armies to flight. Women received their loved ones back again from death, but others were tortured, refusing to turn from God. In order to be set free, they placed their hope in a better life after the resurrection. Some were jeered at, and others' backs were cut open with whips. Others were chained in prison. Some died by stoning. Some were sawed in half, and others were killed with the sword. Great list goes on. Some went in about wearing skins of sheep and goats, destitute and oppressed and mistreated. They were too good for this world, wandering over deserts and mountains, hiding in caves and holes in the ground. And all these people earned a good reputation. You want a good reputation with God? You earn a good reputation with God because of your faith. And yet, here's the maybe difficult phrase as we think about faith and our trust and hope in God. It says, yet none of them received all that God had promised. They believed in a promise from God, and none of them received that full promise. And here's the reason why. For God had something better in mind for us, so that they would not reach perfection without us. And we could dig into what exactly that meant. I did a little bit of quick study before we jumped on today about what the writer of Hebrews is talking about there. But I think it's this idea that God had something better in mind for all of these people, for all of the Old Testament, for all the people that lived more than 2,000 years ago before Jesus came to this earth. They all, had a good reputation with God. They had a good relationship with God, a right standing with God because of their faith. But their faith was looking forward to this future promise that none of them saw. And that future promise was going to be a blessing to the entire world for people who live today, like in 2020. This blessing was going to be for us too. And so as they look forward in faith to Jesus, today we look back in faith to what Jesus has done. And so they would not reach perfection, which they did through faith, without us, who are made perfect because of our faith in Jesus. And so faith is so important. But another note of just reading through this chapter, and there's a whole lot that can be taken from it, is in this list of people, as you're thinking about people that are examples of faith to you, that you can share faith stories with people, that share examples of faith with people today. The writer of Hebrews is like, there's a guy that comes to my mind, and his name is David. And he's saying, I told you a little bit about Abraham and Moses. I told you a little bit about Joseph. I told you about all these people who you already know about. You know your Bibles. He's writing, to those people. And here he says David, and he doesn't say anything about David's faith, about who David was and what he did. I mean, David is like one of the central characters of the Old Testament story. David killed Goliath. That took lots of faith. David was crowned king when he was a boy, and he had to wait years before it actually happened. That took faith. David designed the temple, and he actually never saw it get built. That was his son that made it happen, and I'm sure that took faith. But this great, great man, this great person of God that got so much time in the scriptures, got so much written about him, so many stories about him, so many people look to him, is just a footnote when it comes to this great list of people in Hebrews 11 of all these amazing faith stories. And it's just amazing to me of how God works in people's lives, and we have faith in all different situations and all different ways, and all of it is important. And some people, stick out differently than other people too, as we look back through the course of time. And so have faith, have hope, and share that faith and hope with somebody today. And be part of that X Challenge. Tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. for a special Sunday morning sermon edition of the X Challenge. Have a conversation with one person today. Invite that person to join the X Challenge and report that conversation at connectuschurch.org/X Challenge. Remember, you can join the Bible reading plan, and the X Challenge, or the Multiplication Challenge, is a 14-day multiplication movement of people connecting with others and sharing the hope of Jesus with them. Thanks for tuning in, and let me say a prayer for us today. God, thank you for this weekend. Thank you for this Saturday that you have created for us. God, help us to follow you, to trust you, and to really strengthen our faith. Whatever we're facing today in life, as we think about the big, big picture of wondering how this will all work, how this virus is going to go, are we going to be safe from it, what's going to happen? We have all of these questions, all of these unknowns, and in the midst of those unknowns, we can have faith. So help us, God, to really trust you and to believe in you no matter what. And God, in the day-to-day situations, when we're spending time with our family and our children, when we're wondering what will happen with our jobs, or maybe we're working today and trying to figure that out, new routine out, or whatever the case may be, God, strengthen our faith. Strengthen our trust in you. Help us to hold on to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, thanks for tuning in again. Send me a message, write a comment. Love to hear from you, and we'll see you tomorrow, Sunday morning, 10 a.m., for a special edition of the X Challenge.